A singular trajectory than that of this slave from birth who became one of the major figures of ancient Stoicism. His understanding of philosophy was almost entirely limited to ethics. He is said to have exemplified needlessness according to Cynic-ascetic ideas. In his doctrine of wantlessness, he reasoned that it was not these things themselves that meant happiness to man, but only the ideas about these things. On the other hand, he saw it in man's hands that his own thinking and desire could make him happy. Epictetus demanded that people should be connected to God as a source of courage in life. What is in the sphere of man's power? That was the first principle in his philosophy. He was born between 50 and 60 AD in Phrygian Hierapolis, modern-day Pamukkale in Turkey. Epictetus' name means the acquired one. Little is known about the early life of Epictetus. From the known available sources so far, he was a slave to Emperor Nero's bodyguard and confidant, Epaphroditos. At the time, it was common for wealthy Romans to keep educated slaves. Epictetus had been a student of the Stoic Gaius Musonius Rufus. Epictetus was later released. He then gave lectures on Stoicism and thus spread the philosophical doctrine. Around the year 90 he was expelled from Rome along with other philosophers by a decree of the Emperor Domitianus. He suffered a fate similar to that of Seneca before him. Epictetus moved to Nicopolis in Epirus in western Greece. There he opened a philosophical school, which he built up and which he headed until his death. His school soon became well known and his teachings enjoyed high and widespread acceptance. Even Emperor Hadrian and Emperor Mark Aurel were enthusiastic about Epictetus's philosophy. Aurelius Augustine, one of the most important thinkers of early Christian patristics, classified Epictetus as one of the most important late Stoics. According to Cynic-ascetic ideas, Epictetus is said to have lived without needs. Apart from a few things to live on, such as a blanket, lamp, or straw mattress, he is said to have had no other belongings. In doing so, he exemplified what he praised in his philosophical teaching, namely to limit and concentrate on what is really important in life. In doing so, he was also in complete contrast to Seneca, who, a wealthy Stoic, preached the needlessness as virtuous and thus exemplified an obvious contradiction between teaching and reality. Socrates was the model for Epictetus. Like him, he did not put his teachings in writing. Thus the traditions of his teachings are based on the notes of his disciples. A very apt tradition of the moral writings of Epictetus, the so-called diatribes, are the writings of Flavius Arrianus, who later became the biographer of Alexander the Great. Arrianus recorded Epictetus's teachings with the title The Discourses of Epictetus. A part of it in which enjoyed great popularity and distribution as a consoling book, especially in late antiquity. Epictetus's conception of philosophy meant in the main field of ethics. For him, the justification of moral action lay in the belief in a purposeful world. Purpose was determined by reason, which was of divine origin. Epictetus saw the fulfillment of human existence in the fact that man brings himself harmoniously into the world order through the use of his will. He believed man achieves bliss when he detaches himself from all his desires and is independent of them. In his teaching, he advocated the equality of all human beings. He kept a negative distance from the state of marriage. Epictetus counted all appearances, possessions, outward position, or reputation among those things over which man cannot exert his influence. In his doctrine of wantlessness, he reasoned that it was not these things themselves that meant happiness to man, but only the ideas about these things. On the other hand, he saw it in man's hands that his own thoughts and desires could make him happy. Epictetus was a believer. He called for man's connection with God, from whom all men come. The connection to God gives people courage and strength to get through bad and difficult times. What depends on us refers to the soul and its three faculties, which are judgment, desire, and its opposite, aversion, and the impulse to act. What does not depend on us concerns the body, material goods and honors, and in general, everything that happens in the life of others and in the world. Conceiving philosophy from the angle of moral perfection, as a set of principles and maxims to be integrated into one's life, Epictetus enjoins us to worry exclusively about what is in our power, and to discipline ourselves internally by discarding, for example, the judgments that trouble us. Starting with the fear of death, which does not depend on us, it is advisable not to dwell on it or to be moved by it, to calmly welcome all that happens, even the most painful events like mourning and illnesses. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. Thus death is nothing terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the terror consists in our notion of death, that it is terrible. When, therefore, we are hindered, or disturbed, or grieved, let us never impute it to others, but to ourselves, that is, to our own views. It is the action of an uninstructed person to reproach others for his own misfortunes, of one entering upon instruction, to reproach himself, and of one perfectly instructed, to reproach neither others or himself. God has entrusted me with myself. No man is free who is not master of himself. A man should so live that his happiness shall depend as little as possible on external things. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power or our will.